What's up, y'all? Grandmaster Raven Stirred here. I'm really excited for today's video. We're going to be doing another opening tricks and trap type thing. This time against that clowny King's Gambit. I'm sure you've all seen this position. This is the King's Gambit, and this does not have the best reputation. There are a ton of things that are wrong with this. You know, back in the day, I used to love playing the King's Gambit. I played it up until I was like around 2000 rated, and I loved it. But objectively, it's just really bad. It's really weak. This is just like a worse version of the bird, in which white has already exposed his king with e4, e5 stuff. So, how are we going to react to this? How are we going to play against this? I mean, there are tons of ways we can do it, but I really like the spicy new approach that myself and some other players have been really popularizing. This is a really cool approach, and it's going to, first of all, completely catch your opponents off guard. So we're going to start with knight c6. Notice already this is only played 24% of the time. Knight c6, they're going to play knight f3. Of course, if they take on e5, we're immediately crashing through with queen h4, and we smack through on e4, we're just winning the whole house already. Look at that bar. That bar's already gone up full the way up to the top. That's like, it looks straight like the... It looks just the same as that chocolate river. What is that? That chocolate-like thermometer in Willy Wonka that kid got stuck in? Who is his name? Augustus?
Augusto's sweetheart, save some room for later.
Augustus Gloop? Anyway, you know what I mean. That bar already, only on move 3, and black is already completely winning, which is a great sign. If they play g3, we're just crashing through and we're immediately winning the rook. So they're normally not going to play takes on e5, but that's like a nice little treat. That's a nice little nibble. That 7% of the time, they're already dead lost. So instead they can play knight f3. And now here's where we really go for it. Here is where we really roll the dice and put it all on the table, put it all on the line. We put all our chips on the f5 move. We're all in. The really nice thing about this move is it's actually not that bad. I think the best thing that they have here is something that leads them to like a 0.6 advantage, but that's extremely hard to get. And this position is full of tricks and traps. I want to point out that I've been playing the system a lot, just in general, because I love it. Like, look at this. This is the King's counter-gambit. You're just bamboozling them. Look at what happened here. Pretty much you have it's a mirror image, except your knight is on the better square. Your knight is fighting for the same square as their knight is, but at the same time our queen is kept open. That means that immediately there's so many tricks out there. A lot of people here play, like already, okay, it's only 9%, but come on, they're just losing on the spot. A really good rule of thumb I want y'all to remember is if they take, and if they ever clear this lane out and you're able to attack that pawn with your queen, then the queen check usually works. Let's go for the check. We're going to get snacking. King e2, queen e4, king f2, bishop c5. Computer's saying it's -10 here, meaning black is completely winning, and assuming black is probably going to have to give up his queen to avoid losing immediately. Like, the line is d4, bishop takes, king g3, bishop takes. We're just snacking on all the pawns. King f2, we're going back, king g3, and now after we've gone snacking all the time, what is it, bishop e3? Yeah, this looks unbelievably uncomfortable. Already here we're threatening stuff like queen f4, bishop f2, knight f6. Their king is just stuck here, and they can't escape with h3 because the queen f4 mate. So they're completely bamboozled here. And it goes without saying that, you know, going all the way back to this position, if they block with the pawn, then they're just weakening this diagonal, and we're going to get snacking on that mango, that delicious fruit on h1 from the tropics. That tropical paradise. So anyway, that's if they play knight takes e5, and to be clear, they're not always going to play this, but just the risk to reward is so enormous, right? Already, we've seen 2 separate instances where, you know, 10% of people take on e5, and they're immediately lost on the spot. So now let's get to the other moves. The one thing I really like about this position is that there's literally only like one move that... Okay, not one move. There are 2 moves that are okay. They could play d3 here, which is just calm, just sort of standard stuff, and then we'd play d6 and knight f6, and it's just a normal position, you know, no pawns are really hanging. In this position now, because their pawn is defended here, keep in mind, right, that central pawn is defended now. The queen h4 funny business ain't gonna work no more. It's not gonna go, so pack up your clown suit, bozo. It's not, the circus isn't happening today. So d3 is one move. The other good move they have is e takes f5. And, you know, I just want to really, I really want to accentuate the fact that I think playing against this system, I've only played this once or twice against this e takes f5 move. This is very hard to make. Here we're just going to advance with e4. They have to advance to knight e5, And it does seem, by the way, that 59% of people who get this far do make it there. If they play knight g5, already we play knight f6. We're bamboozling them more. At the moment, it's still equal, but only due to a really hard thing to find. They need to be one of the 7% to find bishop e2 here, with the threat of bishop h5. And the idea here is that because of this bishop h5 threat, and the fact that we can't play g6 because they're just going to keep chopping on that g6 pawn, instead of that, we need to play bishop c5, so that our king can go to f8. And even here now, they just need to abandon all of their plans for bishop h5, because if they do this, king f8, already we're much better here. All of a sudden, you can see that bar start to trickle up the chocolate, up to the fourth position. You know, hopefully eventually Augustus Gloop will make it out of that pipe. So yeah, in this position, why is white doing so badly here? Why is this -1 already for black? Well, it's because this bishop is hanging. There's a lot of discoordination here. They haven't really achieved much, and we're just going to play d5, bishop f5. And the really nice thing I like about these positions always is that you get this beautiful center. You get this big center, this big juicy center. It's like a cantaloupe. And literally, like, your pawns are digging into so many good squares. Their knight does not have access to this golden square. Your other pawn here might advance to d4 and might dig the other knight out of that golden square. Overall, this is a fantastic idea, and it really has some fantastic chances. And that's if they play bishop e2, mind you. That's if they play bishop e2, bishop c5, and then here they don't go for the bishop check, which is 82%. I haven't run these numbers. I ran some other numbers. I got a whole sheet of statistics over here, some analytics for y'all. But it's just really insane that literally, like, they would need to sober up and be one of the 4 players. Only 4 players have played the correct move here. Guys, this is the moment to buy. You got to buy now. So instead, though, a lot of people play bishop c4 here, and you just play d5. You get the free tempo. You're going to get snacking on the pawn. And one of the really nice things here is because they push this f-pawn, like I said before, this is one of the worst versions of the bird. Just stick your bishop here and let them flounder. How are they going to castle here? Technically, the computer liked the bishop captures on f5 a bit more, because then, you know, the knight can't come to e6. Take your pick. Take your pick, y'all. You can take and let them castle. And this still ain't going to be any fun here. You throw in a check, king h1, you kick their knight back to the doo-doo square on h3, and then you can get chopping with takes. You got your knights on the fantastic golden squares here. Let me change that color. You got the knights on the golden squares, you got a fantastic pawn center. Their knight can never go to the golden square because you can play d4. Their bishop is dead, you have a fantastic pawn center, and you're going to play queen d7 and castle. Augustus Gloop is already out of the pipe almost. We're at -3.6. Yeah, so this is a great position. And there's really nothing else to do here. They could also try d3, but I don't think, you know, only 8% of people are playing then. If they play d3, you just play d5, they take, you trade the queens. And at the end of the day, you are slightly better here, and you got this really nice pawn here. I can only talk about this pawn so much. This pawn is so much better than this pawn. And why is that? Well, first of all, you're digging into these squares. Their pawn is just blocking their bishop. Their pawn is making that bishop much worse. And, you know, I know when I publish this that people are going to complain about my bird course because of this, because my bird course is focused on the move f4, but it's very different. You play f4 to eventually play e4. If you play f4 to never meet it with e4, then it is going to just be strategically risky here because you've weakened a lot of squares. So this, to keep in mind though, this is if they have already this is if they've already made the correct decision, which granted is one of the most popular moves at 36% to take here. But now after e4, knight e5, we're just going to keep going, knight f6. And here, I've played this position so many times. Like if we look in the database here, I have my own personal database in Lead Chess. I'm a really spoiled GM who has special privileges here. I don't know. Okay, Lead Chess is freezing here, but suffice to say, I've gotten this position several times, and no one really knows what to do here. They're supposed to play knight c3, and the position is 0.8. That's only played 9% of the time, though. So to be clear, they needed to play something that was 36% times 59% times 9%. That's already 59% times 9%. What is that? That's like 5.5% times 36%. Guys, that's like a 2% chance, like a 1.8% chance. This is the perfect opening, y'all, and that's, even if they get here, it's only 0.8. It's really not the end of the world. Most people here are going to take, and you can chop back. For some reason now finally Leech has updated. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Look at these. Look at this score, everybody. I scored 60% from this position. Even the people who make it this far, only one person knew to play knight c3 here. And guess who won that game? Ya boy. It was me. Knight c3, I just played d6. This is always what I go for. I just want to take, and chop on f5. Here they had to play g4, and I think I played h5 here. Yeah, I was getting really saucy. h5, g5, and I think there's some games where I even just went this way and sacrificed, but of course you are losing the piece here. So it's a bit too saucy for most players. But anyway, I want to be clear though. So I've gotten this position how many times? I've gotten this position in 19 games and only one person. And keep in mind, these are strong people. Okay, my rating is pretty high already. My rating is like 25, 2600 in League Chess. On a good day. On a bad day, it's like 2300. Especially if Kevin's been using my account. But suffice it to say, only one game of the 19 got to that position, and even then I won it. This is a fantastic line. I want to cover a few more of the bad moves here, because there are just so many pitfalls here. Like, first of all, okay, so we talked about knight takes e5 in a lot of cases. This is also a terrible move, though. And how many times is this played? Let's get the graphics back out. This is played 14% of the time, everyone. F takes e5, already it's -2. Augustus Gloop is practically on the outside of the F takes e5 is already +2 for us. This is really fantastic. We're going to take on e4, kick the knight away, and they go back to g1. I really don't know what's the problem with taking on e5. The computer likes playing queen h4 first. Just get snacking on e5. There's no point to complicate it. Apparently queen h4 is slightly better. You throw in a check, g3, queen e7. You're about to chop through there. You're about to play knight f6. You got this just completely extra pawn in the center, right? Like, that's the whole point of this. Look at this. You got an extra pawn in the center. It's already on e4. It's digging that g1 steed out of the f3 square. There's not much more you could ask for in this type of position, everyone. Knight ge2, you're just going to slice through here, and you could wish them good luck. You could beckon them farewell. They're not going to be able to castle. How are they going to be able to fight for this? You already have 3 pieces covering this d4 square. They're not going to be able to put something there to obstruct your path. So that's if f takes e5. And f takes e5 is quite common. Let's talk about a few of the other moves here. Bishop c4. Here already, -1.3 for black. Great position. What more could we want? Taking on e4. Now they should probably take on e5. That's their best bet. This was another surprising moment for me. I would have assumed that d5 would be good, but you got to keep in mind, right? When you're playing with both of these f-pawns off the board, and especially when your f-pawn comes off, queen h5 becomes very strong. So you got to be very careful about this. Queen h5, their knight is looking at this g6 square. I think d5 would be quite risky. Apparently somehow this is still okay for us, but they're going to play bishop b5 and things get a little messy. The better way to handle this is just chop first, right? We chop, and now notice here, is that square available for their queen? No, it's not. There's a pawn there. Queens can't capture their own pawns. So because of that, we don't need to worry about the queen h5 funny business. We can just play d5 here. If they play queen h5, we'll play g6, and their queen cannot put itself on top of that pawn on e5. Until the rules of chess change, this is a great opening trick. So we play d5. We're pushing the bishop back. If their bishop goes somewhere like b3, we could throw in a check. They play g3, and we dig in with queen h3. We're going in for the kill. We're going in for the easy money. If they do something like takes... Oh, I was thinking we were going to play queen g2 and bishop h3, but look at this. We can count all the marbles immediately. Bishop g4. Just capture that queen. Capture that sorry lady. So this is just an unbelievably tough position for them. Their best bet is to just take on d6. And yeah, to black's credit, or sorry, to white's credit, I should say, not to black's credit. To white's credit, they do play this the majority of the time. They do remember that en passant is a thing here, and they want to get rid of this good pawn. We take here. This was a very surprising moment for me because, you know, looking at this, the e-pawn might be good. The e-pawn also might be bad at the same time because it's quite far out. We don't have many pieces out. It could easily become a weakness here. It turns out, though, we're covering this e5 score, so again, queen h5 does not work. And if they castle here, we play queen h4, and we have a lot of threats. We're threatening this. We're threatening also some e3 tricks with taking on c4. We got a lot of good things here. People can play bishop f7 check, and this leads to some crazy stuff. I remember I was looking at another line here. They could play g3, and then we take, they take, we take, and we have the beautiful position here We want to eventually put our bishop on h3 and go for checkmate on g2, but the idea is if we play bishop h3 immediately, they play queen a2. So we first got to play bishop g4, drag their bishop back to e2, then we're going to check, king g1, and then play bishop h3, and queen g5, queen g2 is unstoppable. They could throw in a check and finally bring their queen out, but the difference here is, of course, we're going to be able to get snacking. We should probably first take on f1, just get the mango on f1, but then after they take, then we can take on b5. And this is +5 for black. So, again, nothing to complain about. So, in this position, though, most people who get here do play bishop f7. In this position, the computer is pretty selective. I think of king e7. No, actually, sorry. What am I talking about? King e7, king d7, apparently they're more or less the same thing. King d7 is more accurate according to computer for some reason. Honestly, to me, the Grandmaster, this makes no sense. Why would we be blocking our bishop here? But alas, I guess king e7 is a bit more vulnerable being on the open file. Okay, I'm gonna assume that the computer knows what it's talking about here with king d7. It really doesn't make any sense to me why we would do it. King d7 and we're crashing through here. Best line according to computer is queen h5. We snack on h2. Then we can just trade the queens. We bring our bishop back. We're up a healthy pawn. We're going to play knight f6. We could get our king out to c6. Bishop's coming out. Notice that because the queens are off the board, we do not need to worry about our king safety at all, right? Just be a little careful. Don't let too many pieces get around of the opponents, but apart from that, it's going to be fine. You know, like, the king is an adult. It can handle itself. I'm wondering, though, what's the idea after g3 here? Okay, we're still snacking. Look at that. We're just going to take, king h1, and then we're going to start checking. Someone, y'all are going to have to explain this to me in the comments. Now the computer's saying we play king e7 here, and apparently somehow or another this was a good maneuver. The good news of the story is that this is winning according to the computer. Objectively speaking, it's -1.7, which means black is already winning. Y'all can figure it out on your own. I guess we're going to play bishop g4, bishop f3 stuff to threaten mate with queen g3. Another thing as well here is that they cannot really bully us with a queen trade. If they play queen e1, we can just trade, and the rook would have to lose this bishop here. This is really astounding stuff, though, that we play king d7, king e7. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen anything like this. So that's against bishop c4, though. I wanted to talk about a few other things. Or one other thing. Look at this. They could play knight c3. So knight c3, we immediately chop down. We want to. The whole point of the king's gambit or the king's counter gambit is to, you want to chop a center pawn for a wing pawn, and you want to chop. And because of that, we want to take here. We want to take on e4. I do not know a single person on Earth whose first inclination would not be to take this pawn. But according to the computer, the only way for them to keep a fine position and to keep equality is to take on e5. And here we're just going to play knight f6. Again, we want them to take here. We want them to open up our bishop super quickly. Like if they play something like bishop e2, we'll play bishop d6. They could take, we take, and look at our bishop's getting out, our queen is getting out, we're going to castle. Everything is going well. So instead though, I don't think almost anyone is going to take on e5. Most people are going to take on e4 here. This is the natural thing to do, and the database really backs me up on this one. The database confirms my suspicions. 86% of people, 86% of white players play knight takes e4. So they get chopping, we play d5, we just seize the center, we kick their knight out, knight f2. My inclination is always to dig the knights out of the golden squares, so if you want, you can play e4 here. And it's slightly better. Apparently their knight can go to e5 and somehow, you're a bit better, but they're doing okay. It's best to chop. We chop on f4, we're going to reinforce it with bishop d6, knight f6, castles. You're just up a solid pawn here. So I think that wraps up the variations. I don't think there's anything else to cover, really. Yeah, we've talked about everything. This is a really crazy position. There is one other really spicy move that I'll just leave with you guys for the future. A very good friend of mine, Mike Ivanov, he's a Canadian FM. I think he's very close to the IM title. He just needs the rating of 2400. He got up to like 2395. He has all the norms in place. I definitely think eventually he will get the IM title. I actually made a bet with him that he's going to make it, and at the moment I've been losing money because he's not making it. But sooner or later he's going to make it, and I'm going to get my money back. And anyway, he knows the King's Gambit extremely well. It's one of his favorite openings to play. I play this against him all the time, and he hits me with this very strange move, d4. d4 is very interesting. It's apparently just equals. We can take, they can take. it's very spicy stuff. So if you're wondering, if you play the King's Gambit as white and you're wondering a spicy way to sort of play against the King's counter-gambit, I'll leave you with this very interesting d4 move where there's just so much pawn tension here. Look at this. I've never seen so much pawn tension in my life. This is, in my course in Chessable, I call this a powder keg, and this is like a powder keg on steroids because we have this extra pawn on d4 here. Yeah. So this, to be clear though, d4 has pretty much never been played though. d4 has only been played in 6,000 of the 300,000 games. Very spicy, very novel stuff. So I hope you like this video. I think this trap is tremendous. I think that this trap is a 10 out of 10. Fantastically rewarding and almost zero risk literally. They need to walk that extremely tight and narrow path of playing takes. We play e4, they play knight e5, we play knight f6, and even here if they've gotten this far, they need to play knight c3. To just get up like, what is this, 0.8? 0.4 according to the computer. This is 0.4. This is literally the perfect response. This is the perfect recipe for the King's Gambit. I hope y'all enjoy it. I hope y'all like it, and I hope y'all get some really spicy wins. So on the spicy scale of traps, I would rate this as a 2 out of 5. There's a tiny bit of risk here that, you know, if your opponent knows exactly what you're doing, you're going to be a bit worse. But realistically speaking, that chance is like sub 5%. There's an extremely high percentage chance that they're just going to immediately botch everything, and you know they're going to do something. Like, where was it? They're going to pull an Augustus Gloop. They're going to play something like knight takes e5, and you can just chop, and immediately play queen h4, and count the candies. So, I'll see you all later. I love this trap. This is a great trap, and thank you for watching.